Good day, everyone. In the news now is an article with great importance. And almost 3 years ago, I put out a video where I said that a constitutional court judgment found that the current electoral system in South Africa is unconstitutional and illegal, which means that since 1994, the way we elected our officials was illegal and unconstitutional. So just understand the ramifications of this judgment. And in this article in Business Tech, for which I will provide the link in the description below the video as well as in the first comment, the headline reads, Ramaphosa signs new election changes into law. And I will comment on the short article as I go along. It says President Cyril Ramaphosa has signed the Electoral Amendments Bill of 2022 into law. Now we know there were a lot of extensions to this. Parliament asked for extensions so that they could have what they called very good public participation processes when the public feels that they have not been consulted thoroughly and properly at all, because Parliament dragged its feet with us for many years to begin with. The bill provides for the amendment of the Electoral Act of 1992, Act number 73 of 1998, and gives effect to the Constitutional Court judgment that was handed down on 11th of June 2020. So this was almost 3 years ago that this judgment was handed down. But does it give effect to this? And we'll get to that later. The judgment in the matter of the New Nations Movement, MPC, and versus the President of the Republic of South Africa and others declared the Electoral Act of 1998 unconstitutional for stipulating that elections to the National Assembly and provincial legislatures may only be attained through membership of political parties. And I have been advocating for directly electing our leaders for a very long time now. I started a Facebook group to that effect. And the one movement that has given voice to this directly and specifically, the Organic Humanity Movement, is fighting for us to be able to elect our officials directly. In other words, include further changes to the Constitution. And I will tell you just now what has been established because of this new act that actually might get us there. The amended Electoral Act now provides for the inclusion and nomination of independent candidates as contestants to elections in the National Assembly and provincial legislatures. How it does that is terrible, but it does give effect to an individual now standing as a candidate. Notable measures that feature in the bill are, and the first one is the requirements which must be met by persons who wish to be nominated as independent candidates. And here, what they have gone and done is they've said that an independent candidate needs to get 20% of the signatures of the last seat allocation, the amount of votes that the last seat allocation in Parliament had to get. And in the last elections, Al Jamaa got that seat, and it was just over 30,000 votes. So you would literally have to go with 20% and get over 6,000 signatures to be able to even become eligible. And 6,000 signatures of support to become eligible to be that independent candidate. But the best thing is they didn't ask for the current parties in Parliament to do the same thing, which is patently unfair. So there will be court challenges because of this, and there's many people that have said that they would actually do this. So besides just these independent candidates, they've said that parties that are not represented in Parliament yet, parties, not independent candidates, would also have to do the same. And they included this at the last minute. It's obviously going to cause havoc, and it's going to in the end, they want to get rid of the smaller parties that can't get real support. So say 7,000 signatures, to go and get that is a massive effort. But besides that, what has to happen is the IEC has to count and verify each and every one of those. I don't know how many staff they're going to employ to actually do this work, but they clearly didn't think this through. They wanted to make sure that parties keep the upper hand. The inspection of copies of lists of independent candidates and accompanying documents, so verifications, provision of objections to independent candidates, so you should be able to say that this person cannot be a candidate for XYZ reason. The inclusion of a list of independent candidates entitled to contest elections. In other words, the IEC will make a list available then of people that are eligible, those that have gotten their signatures and met all the other requirements, that you're not a criminal and many other things. Requirements for the appointment of agents by independent candidates. In other words, people that act on their behalf. Obligations for independent candidates to abide by the Electoral Code of Conduct, which is normal. All parties have to sign that before elections. A revised formula for the allocation of seats and the reallocation of in the event of vacated seats. So if this person should be deceased, what happens then to seat allocations? And it's all going to go to parties. All additional votes will also overflow to parties in a proportional way, which is madness. I mean, and this is why the Electoral Act needs to be completely reformed. We need to reform the Constitution, etc. And we'll get just now as to how we can do that. A revised formula for the allocation of seats and the reallocation, then stipulation for the minister to establish the Electoral Reform Consultation Panel. And this was their way out. So they absolutely, in my mind, went against what the Concord wanted. Completely and utterly. They made sure that the parties have more power through this bill. Not that independent candidates has power. In fact, they will be disempowered completely. It's actually a pointless exercise. But this last part is the interesting part, and I know it's just wool over people's eyes. But stipulation for the minister to establish the Electoral Reform Consultations Panel. And we'll talk just now about what that means. And it has to be established within 4 months of the president signing this new act into law. The Amendment Act requires the Minister of Home Affairs to establish the Electoral Reform Consultation Panel within 4 months of gazetting the amendments. Following the stipulated independent investigations and consultations, the panel will make non-binding, and this is the wool over the eyes part, recommendations on potential reforms of the electoral system for future elections of the National Assembly and the provincial legislatures after the 2024 polls. So this is trying to pie people over, make people feel like, okay, change could come. Now, within the organic humanity movement, it's very simple. You need to go in and you need to convince people in parliament, it doesn't matter who they are, that we change the system completely. And this is what should happen. But this was just a little carrot given to people to accept what is happening now. That's all it is, because it's non-binding. Just like the Zondo Commission, where we spent over R1 billion, over 1,000 million rand for nothing. Now, how much is this going to cost taxpayers? The Electoral Amendment Bill will make a significant milestone in the evolution. This is Cyril Ramaphosa. I quote him now. The Electoral Amendment Bill marks a significant milestone in the evolution of our democracy by expanding electoral participation and widening the pool of leadership choice for the National Assembly and provincial legislatures. But that's not the case, and made it almost impossible for independent candidates to stand. The bill presents a development that can only enrich and sustain our growing constitutional democracy, President Cyril Ramaphosa said. I wonder if he actually believes what he says in this instance, because the ANC made sure that they are looked after, the DA made sure that they are looked after, the EFF made sure that they are looked after. They don't believe in independent candidates. They believe everything should happen under a party, and this is why the constitution needs to be reformed. The bill went through extensive public consultations prompting Parliament to request 2 deadline extensions. That's not the case at all. They in fact rushed it off right at the end. There was nothing extensive about this. Thus, the final deadline for the Parliament to pass a bill was 28th of February 2023. Much later than it should have been. President Ramaphosa is satisfied that the processes leading to the passing of the bill followed all legislative procedures as envisaged by the Constitution, and that the substance of the bill will pass constitutional scrutiny. While I beg to differ, people will take this to the Concord, and we will see what the Concord judges come up with afterwards. But at the end of the day, the fight that OM has to change the constitution and the electoral system completely continues. We're not going to be sidetracked by what is happening here. I'm a member of OM and I support that fight to the end for system change in South Africa. Thank you so much for watching this video, and please remember, to share this with your friends and family.